Between 2020 and 2025, the average American household spent roughly $1,000 more per month on the same lifestyle they had before inflation even hit. Same groceries, same utilities, and same insurance, and same car payment. $1,000 more every single month for nothing new. And the advice that flooded personal finance content during that period: cut your latte, cancel subscriptions, meal prep on Sundays, was so disconnected from the scale of the problem that it bordered on insulting. I mean, a $5 coffee is not why your grocery bill went up $300. Knowing that doesn't solve the problem, but it tells you to look in the right place for the solution. And here's where the real money is hiding and how to get it back. The problem with standard inflation: the conventional response to rising prices follows a predictable script. Cut discretionary spending, eat out less, cancel subscriptions, brew coffee at home, shop sales, and use coupons. And these tactics are not wrong. They do save money, but they are operating at the wrong scale for the problem inflation actually creates. A household who fixed cost rent or mortgage insurance or utilities debt payments have risen by $600 $800 per month cannot close that gap by canceling Netflix and bringing lunch to work. Those discretionary spending cuts that feel significant in isolation are in aggregate covering 10 to 20% of the actual shortfall. And the rest of the gap sits in the categories most financial advice is structurally reluctant to address: housing, insurance, transportation, and debt. The big fixed costs that are uncomfortable to negotiate or renegotiate and genuinely difficult to reduce. Saving meaningful when prices rise requires going after big numbers, not small ones. A single successful negotiation on your car insurance can save more money in one phone call than a year of clipping coupons. And one strategic housing decision can change your financial picture more than every discretionary cut combined. And this doesn't mean ignore the small savings; they compound. If it means start with the categories where the real money is and work down to the smaller ones, not the other way around. In category one, insurance, the most negotiable fixed cost. Auto insurance rates have increased between 25 to 50% in most markets over the past 3 years, and driven by repair cost inflation, supply chain disruptions, and auto parts, and insurance recalibrating risk models after years of underpricing. And most policyholders accepted the increases as renewal without question, which is exactly what the insurers expected them to do. And here's what most people don't know: auto insurance is one of the most competitive markets in consumer financial services. Switching carriers costs you nothing. The quotes you get from competing insurers are not random. They're driven by your specific driving history, your credit profile, and your vehicle. And the difference between the highest and lowest quotes for identical coverage from competing insurers can be $800 to $1,500 per year on a typical policy. Spending 90 minutes getting quotes from at least four competing insurers every time your policy renews does this regardless of whether you plan to switch. The data you gather tells you immediately whether you're being overcharged, and the willingness to switch is the leverage that allows you to negotiate with your current insurer. If you prefer to stay, many insurers will match a competitor's low rate, quote, to retain a customer in good standings who calls and presents a competing offer. Apply the same logic to homeowners or renters insurance and health insurance if you're on an individual or marketplace plan, and life insurance if you've had your policy for more than 3 years. Insurance is the fixed cost category with the most price variation and the lowest switching friction. It is almost always the highest ROI place to start. And here goes category two: groceries, where the real savings are. Grocery inflation hit harder than more visibly than almost any other category, and the psychological impact of watching your weekly groceries bill climb affected spending behavior in ways that hurt as much as the inflation itself. Impulse buying comfort food, abandoning meal planning, and under stress default to convenience when decision fatigue sets in. The single most impactful grocery strategy that most households haven't implemented is a full protein source audit. Protein is the most expensive component of the most grocery budgets, and the category with the most price variation between options. delivering equivalent nutrition like chicken thighs versus chicken breasts, um, eggs versus steak, dried beans and lentils versus any animal protein, canned fish, sardines, mackerel, tuna versus fresh fish. So the household that shifted 20 to 30% of their protein spending towards lower cost sources with equivalent nutritional value reduced their grocery bill by 80 to $150 per month without changing how often they cooked or how satisfying the meals were. Store brand products have improved dramatically in quality over the past decade too, and now offer identical formulations to name brands and most categories for 20 to 40% less. And the categories where store brands is most indistinguishable from name brand in actual use is like pantry staples like canned goods and frozen vegetables and dairy products, over the counter, medications and cleaning supplies. The categories where brand matters enough to justify the premium. A narrow list of specialty items specific to your household, and audit your last grocery receipts and identify every name brand item that has a store brand equivalent. The annual savings from a systematic shift is typically $600 to $1,200 for an average household. Category three: subscriptions and services. The audit most people skip. I know you're probably already clicked off this video, but subscription creep is real. And if it accelerated during the years of cheap entertainment, competing for attention, the average American household, it now pays for subscriptions they don't actively use that total $300 to $600 per year. And streaming services started for a single show and never canceled. Software subscriptions auto renewed from a trial. Fitness apps replaced by other habits, and net news subscriptions from a moment of civic enthusiasm in an election year. Pull your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements and highlight every reoccurring charge, not just the ones you remember, every single one. The ones you've forgotten are the ones costing you money. Cancel anything you haven't actively used in the past 30 days for services you do use but could share. Streaming platforms, software subscriptions that allow multiple users. Explore family or shared plans that split the cost. Then go further. Call your internet provider and ask what promotions are available. Call your cell carrier and ask whether there is a plan with equivalent service at a lower monthly cost. These conversations take 15 minutes and routinely surface $20 to $50 per month in savings per service from providers who have retention offers they don't proactively advertise. And here's category four: debt, the inflation multiplier. Rising hit hardest when they compound with high interest debt. A household carrying, $8,000 in credit card debt at 24% interest is paying roughly $160 per month in interest alone. And money that generates nothing and reduces nothing except a minimum payment obligation. That's 1920 per year in pure loss that sits on top of every other inflationary pressure. High interest consumer debt is the highest priority financial problem in inflation environment because it amplifies every other cost increase. Every dollar of purchasing power lost to inflation is worse for a household in debt because the household is simultaneously losing purchase power and paying a penalty rate for the privilege of carrying a balance. And here's the tactical sequence. If you have credit card debt above 15% interest, attacking it aggressively is a guaranteed return equivalent to the interest rate of 24%. Guaranteed is a better return than almost any investment available. Call your credit card company and request a rate reduction. This works more often than people expect, particularly for customers with a history of on time payments. Explore the balance transfer cards with promotional 0% periods. Consider a personal loan at a lower rate to consolidate high rate balances. Each percentage point of interest rate reduction on 8,000 of debt save $80 a year, and the difference between available rates are typically 10 to 15 percentage points, meaning hundreds of dollars annually. Then the income side of the equation, every strategy covered so far is a spending reduction strategy. They work and they matter, but in an inflationary environment where prices have structurally reset higher, spending reductions alone have a ceiling. You can only cut so much before you're cutting things genuinely affecting your quality of life. And the other side of the equation is income. And in the current labor market, the gap between what someone is paid at a job they've held for several years and what some same role pays to a new hire at a competing employer is often 10 to 20%. Employers raise existing salaries slowly. They pay market rate to attract new talent. The employee who never asks and never explores alternative is almost always being paid below what their skills command in the open market. Research what your role pays at comparable employers in your market using your salary transparency tools. If there's a meaningful gap, 10% or more, you have a legitimate and documentable case for a raise conversation. If the conversation doesn't close the gap, the market will. And the changing employers for a meaningful salary increase in the inflationary environment is one of the highest ROI financial moves available to most working people, and it requires far less ongoing discipline than the spending reduction strategies that get all the attention. Price rise, income needs to rise with them. And budget cuts are maintenance. Income growth is the solution. Thanks for watching. If you liked today's video, like and subscribe. Love to hear from you in the comment section too. And if you really love me, feel free to buy me a coffee. It is down in the description and on the main page of this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Oh, and like this video over here on the right. I think it can help you out too.